Warning, this episode contains graphic language, Angela the Witch, and as always, Teen Angst. Also, there'll be spoilers for chapters 4 through 6 of The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm by Christopher Paolini. Listen at your own risk.
Is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. And anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host who has also been known to get lost in a good library from time to time.
And I'm Jacqui Lanier, and is this a podcast or is this just fantasy? The podcast where we have also been on a frantic and confusing journey, but at least ours didn't end with adopting a witch baby.
So true. And if you'd like to support us on Patreon, there's a link in the show notes. And if you can't or just don't want to, we totally understand. And just ask that you please rate us on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast.
And as always, visit us at isthisjustfantasypod.com, our very cool website that lives out there on the internet and also rent-free in your head. And follow us on social media. We're on TikTok at isthisjustfantasypod and Instagram at justfantasypod.
Yeah, and we just got finished with Murtag and really honing in on the true meaning of life and what we really need to be worried about. Should we relax more? Do we need to work more?
Should I buy a lot more forks?
Yeah. Are forks dangerous inherently?
I mean, yes. Also, I'm just now thinking about it. Is it one of those old-timey medieval two-tine forks?
I think it might be.
Amazing.
The true fork. The first fork.
The original fork.
The original fork. Make forks great again.
No.
We don't want... Well, and I was thinking about this. These episodes are smaller, and this episode particularly, my two chapter summaries, both of them, are smaller than any one chapter summary other than those quick there was these weird dream or Roaring Katrina chapters. Remember those?
Yes.
Other than those chapter summaries,
other than tent chapters,
other than chant, they're either just had sex or they're about to have sex chapters.
Yes.
These are combined smaller than my one chapter summary.
That is correct. We've always done the chapter summaries portion of the podcast, just trading off.
Yeah.
You always start, and then we trade off chapter by chapter. And when we started this book, I was like, oh.
Well, traditionally that has actually done me out because I always do.
If we have odd numbers, you always do
one more.
Yeah, the last one.
All of the seasons, right?
Yeah.
And so this one, I first was like, oh, we should probably do this different. But I was like, no. This is fine. This is fine.
It was fine. I accepted my fate. Every once in a while, too, just, peek behind the curtain in these bonus episodes. Every once in a while, we'll be reading and one chapter will just be absurdly long. We'll be like, well, I really think this makes more sense since you do the deep dives, Dane. Or you'll be like, I just feel like this is so in step with your analysis. I think you should take this 100-page chapter.
Yeah, I just really feel like you are more equipped with this.
Yeah, we always have reasons, which I love about us.
Yeah.
We'll justify anything
we
in
are
the name
same
of
in this
if
way.
I could do a little less work.
Maybe we don't need to, but we could just talk this out. Well,
incredible.
This I will say. This section of this short stories is different.
It's so different.
It's very different than the first section, and I did not expect this. And as you could probably guess, I wasn't as excited about this.
Angela on Angela, Dane.
Yes.
Angela's all the way down.
Anyway, so we'll just get right back into it.
Yeah.
I'll just do it. Chapter 4, Rhymes and Riddles.
Ooh.
We're back in right with Angela and Solblum, sitting across from Aragon in the winter.
Yes.
So time has passed since our last interlude, and
right.
oh yeah. Angela's here.
Where isn't she, Dane?
Yeah, seriously.
Just for you.
I know. He's like he knew I was reading.
Yes.
Angela has come with traders, and she's all cozy and bundled up to show that time has passed. Elva is also there, but luckily she was left downstairs.
I do like that. Angela's like, I'm here. I need to do some diplomacy, basically.
Yes.
But I should probably leave the cursed witch baby out of it.
Cursed witch baby.
The cursed witch baby who's a mortal enemy of...
Yes, of the man I'm meeting. Which is nice for Eragon says, he feels guilt for ruining her life and making her a self-sacrifice cursed witch baby. We do get an age for Elva.
Okay.
Is she really 4 but looks 10?
Okay.
But we did add inheritance. I think she was 2 and looks 6. I'm not quite sure how this all works. I did not go deep into this for this book. If this comes up in Murtag, we'll deep dive it. But there's something, this doesn't seem right. But maybe she really is 4. It would make sense. I guess a year has gone by. It was the first year in the first book.
A year had gone by for Murtag in the last section, and now we're on the next winter. It depends on when Elva's birthday is, which is not a thing I know.
Yeah, I thought this was summer, winter, spring. The sections of this book.
Oh, yes, I think so.
So, we're only, a few months past where we were
Gotcha.
4. But that was a year. So, I guess maybe she had an odd birthday.
Yeah.
Maybe she's 4. But she looks 10 now. So, good for her. Angela is giving... sassy, but isn't she always?
Yes, that's kind of her vibe.
I think it's her charm. We learned through this conversation that there are no newly hatched dragons because the eggs need to wait just a little bit more.
They're cooking.
Yeah, and the new dragon holds have not yet been built yet, and there's not a lot of food and supplies for a whole dragon in the mountain and, all that type of thing.
That makes sense.
We also learned that Saphira did not get pregnant or hatch eggs.
Yeah, I was really sad about that.
Yeah.
I guess already here I am getting a little bit of a different vibe from Angela than in the main series, which is a little interesting because this is still the part Christopher Paolini wrote.
Yes.
But Angela does seem a little different. She's still very blunt, but she doesn't seem as whimsical or kooky as she did before. It's more serious and disconcerting.
Welcome, Jacqui. All that's happened is you've joined me.
No,
I've slowly
talked me
convinced
into
you
it. You
into
wore
it.
me down.
Yes.
Boo.
Time is the greatest persuasive tool. Well, anyway, Eragon gets down to business right away, but I get the vibe he's also done with Angela, and I like this growth for him, truly. Now that he's a leader and a big boy, he's a little... Sorry, I can't even say it. He's a big boy now.
He's a big boy.
He's a bit less into her shenanigans.
Yes.
Angela is taking a bit of a walk around with Elva, but sounds mostly like she's trying to get away from Nasawada's crazy wizard police.
Makes sense.
Which is really funny because they are as bad as Eragon thought they would end up.
Yes, magical Gestapo.
Pretty much is what it sounds like. Angela mentions a few places. They have been to Duwelden Varden, which we know is where the elves are all at, and Trondheim, where the dwarves are all at. But then she mentioned this place I think we've heard mentioned somewhere in the series before, but I cannot find it. The Dream Well in the Manny's Caves.
Okay.
And now she's taking Elva to Eragon. So they're getting all the hits.
Yes.
Anywhere that's not the human empire.
They're on a grand tour. It's one of those Viking river cruises.
Yes. Angela and Eragon then dive in and talk about why Angela might really be there.
Yeah.
Elva could help with the broken Eldenari dragons.
Right.
But also it might be good for Elva. It seems our little witch baby might be having a tough time or be a troubled teen or something. In typical Angela fashion, though, she changes the conversation by showing off her memoir and wanting a bit of insight from Eragon.
Just quick departure. She's like, hey, I'm publishing. You got notes?
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
She is mean about it because Angela, I guess it's supposed to be funny. I don't really read it that way, but it's supposed to be ooh, she's sassy.
She'll just put him in his place. I mean, that feels in step with the series before. But again, I feel like it just comes with less
Well, the context is weird. I've come out of nowhere with someone who hates you and I need your help. Also, will you read this for me? And then packaged with I'm a kind of a jerk a little bit.
Yeah. In a tone that is berating. Yeah. And I feel I guess in the original books, it was always couched in, well, of course I'm investigating toads and I need to philosophize about this other, there was more.
A memoir seems really self-indulgent. I just think if anyone is writing a memoir, if you're writing a memoir, someone somewhere thinks they're self-indulgent. It's just one of those things that is inherently about you.
Yeah.
It's not as whimsical as toads aren't frogs or whatever.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Of course, Angela is writing the book out of order because that's just how her brain works.
Yep.
They met back and forth for a bit, and of course we learn here that Angela also believes in all the gods and has an expanded idea of what's possible. She's special.
Of course.
And we learn that she has a perspective of, quote, that of the ring maker.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, which I honestly, I truly know. I thought about it. I meditated on it. I think it might be a fractal verse thing, but I don't personally know. I just didn't know.
Like a little inter-series crossover moment.
I think so. I think she is an inter-series crossover person.
I just thought maybe there is a moment in the original. I just came up with an absolutely unhinged theory for this. Yes, you're all welcome. There's a moment in the original series. I think actually it's when Aragon and Arya are camped out when she makes the grass ship. They make a reference to like the god with many faces. No, not the god with many faces. The one who knocks. It's a Doctor Who reference. Christopher Paolini has come out. No, shoot. Now I can't remember how it's
I
phrased.
am the one who knocks. No, all right.
Or like the Lord of Time. He said something that like is an on-page reference to Doctor Who. Is what?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Christopher Paolini in interviews has said like, I'm a fan. I just like dropped a little Doctor Who Easter egg in here. So now I'm reading this thinking maybe Angela is friends with Sauron.
You know what? If that ended up being true, I'd just be like, yeah, that makes sense. I guess it makes sense.
I think it tracks for Angela. It tracks for Christopher Paolini if he's a fan.
Yeah.
And that's canon for me now.
Anyway,
I figured it out. Yeah. You're welcome.
Anyway, Solomon tells Aragon to beware of shadows that walk and that there are strange forces at work, which just seems like fortune cooking nonsense to me as he walks out. And for once, Aragon is left annoyed with them as well.
Yeah.
And thank you, God, Aragon. Yes. I'm finally in sync with you. And whew, I'm done having to read that. I was like, if someone was trying to be whimsical and was like, and beware the shadows, things are not as well as they should be, and like left, I'd be like, well, I guess.
Cool.
You could have said that at any point in time ever. I don't know what you mean by this.
Well, and I guess this time it feels just like Solemn Bum from the regular series, but this time it doesn't come along with the MacGuffin of like, right. And this is how you fix it. Right. It's like, well, what? Why? You missed a part.
I guess it's just one of those things that people will come back to and be like, Solemn Bum knew the whole time.
Yes.
But whatever happens in the future, Solemn Bum will have known the whole time because it's that vague.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And also, this is a magical world and that's his superpower. So like, yeah. Of course he knew.
Of course.
That does take us to chapter 5 on the nature of stars, the short story part of this section. And we're off to the races in Angela's book or Bible or whatever it is. She kind of describes it as her like religious text. It's
all very strange.
A vibe.
Yeah.
It's as quintessentially Angela, I think, as it could conceivably be in a lot of ways. The section, like you said, was actually written by, this is the section that was written by Christopher Paolini's sister, the namesake or the inspiration for the character. So it feels like more of a departure for sure, stylistically. I think that's why up top we're like, it's different. It's definitely different.
Definitely feels different.
Yes. So I think that makes sense. Somebody different, just completely different wrote it.
Yeah.
So to kick us off, she talks about repeating the mistake of being too authentically herself many times in her youth before pivoting to say that she rarely makes mistakes and never repeats them. And she goes on to add that everything in her memoir is going to be both true and false. And the whole first installment is essentially a lesson in Angela's offbeat philosophy on the nature of truth in storytelling. So that's segment 1. And the first official chapter starts off with Angela in her childhood, lying in a pasture of tall grass and stargazing. She falls into a trance-like state that she just describes as altered and has this cosmic experience where it sounds like she gets into the Matrix. This is the best way. Like, that was where my mind went. And after passing the whole night feeling the stars move above her until she realizes it's really the earth moving below her, the spell breaks and she leaves us on a cliffhanger of some potential consequences all of this is going to have. And I'm like, oh, she did drugs for the first time.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so she got high for the first time.
Yeah. The earth, it's moving too fast. Slow it down, Dane. Make it go slower. I loved it. So her next chapter starts a stone's throw away from the end of the last as Angela studies a dwarven-made globe still transfixed by the realization that it's the earth rotating, not the stars moving. This is a animating moment in her life. She's clearly hung up on this. And it seems she's in some sort of interdimensional library, like at risk of getting stuck somewhere between space and time if she tries to leave at the wrong time or the library does what she calls shifting. But surprisingly for Angela, she's here for a reason. I was like, oh, I can't believe that. But she's here to find true knowledge, she says. She talks about the entrance to the library being a tower, and in this phase of her life, she's the apprentice to the tower's keeper and at risk of being caught at any moment sneaking around in his library where she's not supposed to be. So this has got to be Tenga, right?
Kind of feels like that.
Yes.
And didn't Aragon go back to that tower that was just like empty and he was gone?
Yes. And I clearly remember like when Tenga came up to Angela in the original series, it seemed like there was bad blood between them, I thought. And her descriptions of her boss in this little section are not necessarily glowing. So this feels in line with how she reacted. You know what I mean?
It might not be Tenga, but it sounds like it could be.
Yes.
But also, Angela's the type of person that probably doesn't like anyone of her bosses or anyone really.
No, definitely not a boss.
Yeah.
She would have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I did really like, the library setting was very cool to me. Like, just
it was
shifting
interesting.
around time and space. I was like, ooh, I would for sure go there.
It's weird that the two people doing a book podcast are like the library, though.
That you know what I like? Cool. This will surprise you, Dane. I don't want to throw you for a loop or anything.
I got a wild idea. Hold on to your hat. I like books.
Yes.
I agree with you, though.
A thing you have in common with Angela.
Oh, no.
Aren't you happy? So Angela is searching frantically through this library, and it's huge also, by the way. Just like you can't even see the edges of it. Huge. She's searching for something, and right at the moment she opens a hidden drawer, she gets caught in the dimensional shift, and this vignette ends with her being trapped in the library. So we know shit's gone down, and then away we go. We catch up with her again in the next section as she rolls up on Elva, and now we're in post-war Illyria.
Okay.
And it seems like Elva has been caught causing a ruckus for Naswada in the capital, so she's been politely confined to her room. She's in jail, basically. Elva's on house arrest. She's got a beeping ankle bracelet. And her antics frankly sound hilarious to me, but I did feel like there's a sinister undertone that we always get with Elva of like, if this were really happening, it would be very scary to have that little witch baby in like political mix and like I'm picturing Elva is like the chief of staff to the speaker of the house. Like what gosh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's where my mind goes when this section is happening. So
well, with Elva, I always think like hurt people. Am I right? You know what I mean?
I mean, yes. So how could you not? If you knew everything that would hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Apparently, if you're Elva, you're going to use it.
Well, yeah.
I guess.
I feel like in this, I mostly in this section identify with Elva.
She has had a shitty hand dealt to her for sure.
Exactly.
So Angela's here to take Elva out of the city, to break her out of prison, basically. And she's warming to the idea of having a creepy witch baby apprentice. Angela's like, that might be fun. Who's to say? Let's do it for the plot. Her pitch here is simple. Elva won't ever fit in, no matter where she is. And Angela can help her lean into the extraordinary and supernatural aspects of her life in this world. And on top of that, Angela is the only person we know of that Elva can have somewhat of a normal interaction with, because Angela is immune to witch baby curse.
Yes.
So that does make sense to me. I feel like of all the things that are happening, this tracks.
Me too. This seems to make a lot of sense.
Yes. So they chat escape plan logistics, with Elva growing increasingly dubious that Angela will be able to get her out of this heavily guarded room. She's like, I mean, sure, I could go, but you can't fucking do that.
Yeah, you can't get me out of here.
Because I like that Elva's like, I dare you. Do it.
Yeah.
I dare you.
I don't want to go. Convince me.
Yes, exactly. But Angela insists that if Elva does want to go, she will make it so. That's all she says. And through sheer force of offbeat will, Angela gets Elva to pack her shit, say goodbye to Greta, which honestly shocked me. I can't believe she was like, I need to pay respect to this person.
Yikes.
Because up till now, Elva has not treated Greta with anything but disdain.
Isn't it bad even in this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not fun, but I couldn't believe she just thought she had to say goodbye to Greta at all.
Yeah. She just needs to leave Greta alone.
Yes, I think so.
Poor Greta probably had the worst relationship with anyone in this entire book.
100%. I do. Yeah. As much as we're like, Elva really got sold a false bill of goods. Greta is paying the price. Yeah. She's the one who ponied up for it.
Yeah, it's technically Greta's fault.
God.
In Elva's therapy, she's gonna be like, well, if Greta had never.
Damn. Yeah. On top of everything else Greta has gone through, she lives under the crushing guilt that
she's the reason Elva's the way she is.
Womp.
Parenthood.
Justice for Greta.
Parenthood.
Oh, no. Elva, though, she really, I think, did not give two shits about Greta in the original series. So it does come out, I think, by the end of the goodbye with Greta.
Yeah.
Elva is once again rude as hell and uses her, I'll tell you your deepest fear, to the poor old woman to get her to go. Because I think when Greta hears Elva's going to leave, she's like, well, no, let me come with you. Yeah. And then Elva has to like use her power for evil. So pour one out for Greta, I think, is where we land on this podcast.
Yeah, we're a pro Greta podcast.
Yes. To her credit here, Angela is pissed that Elva treats Greta so terribly. And in response, Elva finally circumvents Angela's wards to nail her deepest fear. So this was a little bit of a surprise to me. I did not see this coming.
Yes, it was really interesting.
Yes. And again, to Angela's credit, she's determined to remain unfazed by Elva's power. So she has that fear spoken aloud to her, and she's like, I'm fine. I will be fine. I have to be fine.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So 2 things about this. I feel like there is some confirmation here that Angela is usually immune to Elva because she has wards in place. So we figured that out. There is an answer, I guess.
Yeah.
And it does make more sense in the magic system for this to be the case, but I also feel like it detracts a little bit from Angela's like general aura of mystery. Like I kind of wanted it, I think, for me to be something that's just apart from the world, the way Angela usually is.
And this is always my problem with her. If she is the way she is, and we take it at face value, she's completely separate from everything. Mm-hmm. And then the moment that you realize, well, it does fit into the world, then you're like, well, this is just, she's just getting like special treatment from the author.
Yeah, maybe it feels like they're trying to have it both ways a little bit. It's like you're trying to have this extraordinary character, this like outside the bounds of time and space character, but then you also do not want to piss off the people who are like, well, that doesn't work. Actually, that doesn't work in the magic system.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, okay, to be charitable, though, I guess it could be that she is just a complex person that doesn't have the ability to not allow herself to be mysterious, and thus always insinuates it's something extra magical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And
totally
that's
makes
the
sense.
interesting thing. She is just a mundane, normal magician, but pretends to be more. You know?
I could see that. I mean, maybe this
that's
is
my most charitable.
I know. I'm like, that's a nice thing you ever said about
Yeah.
Angela. I feel like also it could be that like maybe, because we know that Angela is not particularly powerful in the magic system. She's more wily than powerful.
Doesn't she have trouble grasping
like
magic?
Simple spells a lot of time?
She can't. She like that part where they talk about getting the magic and then using it. She can't do that part.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it could be the type of thing where like for the vast majority of things, she has a little bit of a weakness.
Yeah.
But maybe she has a couple standout, like she just is the like mental ward caster. Like she just is
maybe
so good at that one thing.
Yeah. Why not help out with Galbatorix?
That's true. That's a good point.
Like I see, this is the thing with her is like once you start breaking her apart, you end up with more like, well, why didn't you?
Yeah, it's always like, if that's the case, then why not?
Yes. Yeah.
That makes sense. I think also like on the whole, Elva does know Angela's deepest fear. The only other thing I had to say about this section is we don't find out what the fear is. It's off screen.
Of course, it's her memoir. She
and
left
that
it
is
off.
Fucking infuriating. I wanted to know, as all over the place as this short story is, I do really, really want to know that information.
Yeah.
And who the hell puts a dangling mystery in a book of short stories? Real life Angela, that is a little bit rude.
In 2018 with no book in sight.
Yes. A little bit rude, Angela. I just want to say,
Angela.
I want to know.
Yeah.
But back to the story, the memoir. Angela's book wraps up with her steadfast insistence that she can take Elva from her captivity. And when Elva does agree to go, Angela opens a portal to a starlit beach from the middle of a brick wall, which is fun. This is not something we've really seen before.
No,
I was
breaks.
like...
We talked a lot about teleportation and like...
Yes.
This breaks all the stuff.
Yes, the egg spell and all of that. Yes, this is apparently not Angela's true home, this moonlit beach, but it's just a waypoint because she says she's going to take Elva to her home, another thing we don't get to see.
Again, I think this is Fractalverse stuff.
That would make sense, I think. And
I think we're just not a Fractalverse people, so we're like, I have no idea what this means.
No, and Christopher Paolini and his sister, who like write or will do writing together, have talked a little bit about Fractalverse crossover, right?
Yes. I think they've worked out like a whole universe or something.
Yes.
I'm unsure on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
TBD. Paolini.
Does that take us to chapter 6?
Yes. The vignettes end with Angela following Elva through the portal to join Solemnbum on the beach because he's there, of course. And I feel like I have no idea what the hell just happened.
Nope. And I think that says everything about Angela.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess cool, but also what? Yeah.
What? Take us to questions and answers, Dane. Are there answers, Dane?
There isn't. Chapter 6, questions and answers, pretty short. We come back to Aragon, a little stunned, I think, from what he's just learned after his reading. Because
Same dog.
Yeah, he's got to be thinking she was tripping on one of her potions or something.
Yes.
Aragon doesn't know about Paolini's fractalverse.
Boo. So somebody tell that guy about the fractalverse.
So he heads to Angela in the common area that people chill at here in the mountain home.
Yeah.
And Angela's knitting because she's kooky. And I love that
She's cottagecore.
Yeah, exactly. I love that Aragon asks her how much of the book is true. It's his first thing. He's like, how much of this is true?
It's also like, did you read the first chapter, Aragon?
Oh my God.
She's not going to tell you. She's the one who wrote that insanity. She's obviously not going to tell you.
Yeah. It's all my guy.
Yeah.
But I guess
all and none.
Yeah, all and none. But that is easier for me to tease out, given there were probably more than we didn't read, and I can infer this from the context. It's all true.
Yeah.
But, Aragon. Angela points to her preface of the book, like you did.
Yep.
How mysterious.
Girl.
She essentially tells him it's all true, though, and it does seem she's sharing to help. Like, it seems she wants him to know of other worlds and her powers and of Elva, which is nice. Basically, you're a big fish in a little pond, so keep vigilant and keep ready,
something's amiss out there.
This is truly the first time I genuinely believe that this is a nice thing, Angela. She's like, I came here just to tell you that, like, this whole thing, very small. Like,
yeah.
You're not that powerful. So just, like, be ready, because she genuinely likes him.
Stay ready so you don't gotta get ready, Aragon.
Right here, first time I've been like, I like Angela. This seems nice. This moment was like, I was like, great, because she's also here for Elva. So I was like, she's not that bad. She's just annoying. You know what I mean?
Dane, I think in this way, learning more about her has taught you to have empathy for Angela. I think of all the things that wild collection of vignettes has done, it accomplished its goal.
Well, we will see. After that, she won't answer any more questions about the Keeper of the Tower. They discuss that Elva needs Aragon as a teacher as well, and that she both deserves it, and he probably has a responsibility more to her than to anyone. Probably he will ever have responsibility to. Then he takes her pages and tries to give them back to her, but she wants him to keep it.
Weird.
Yeah, which I don't understand. But he says he will, though. Which, dude, don't. Just throw him away, Aragon.
That would be so... Could you imagine?
Just throws him in the fire.
You, like, wrote a manuscript and somebody was like, well, if you don't want it.
No, if I wrote a memoir and was like, please read my memoir, and you're like, here, I have some notes, here's your memoir. I was like, no. That's for you. You would throw it away. You'd be like...
I would not throw that away. I'd be so scared. Especially for you. You'd come back looking for it. You'd be like, did you keep it? Is it framed now?
Where is it? Is it in a leather-bound book you made? Aragon has learned the art of just being like, okay, I guess.
Yes, that is the skill he's honed most.
Yeah, he's like, okay, I guess.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's all this time with the elves. He's like, sure, guy. Aragon checks in with Saphira to make sure she was listening and gets her support before he approaches Elva.
Yes.
And the chapter ends with Elva smiling at Aragon with wide, sharp teeth. Did she file her teeth also?
Yes, what is it with this book? Like, what is it with all the filed teeth? I do not like it. And is this like the fashion, do you think, now in alligators?
Everyone's like sharpening their teeth.
Oh.
Well, also, I want to see the cursed witch baby betrayed by the dragon rider. That's what I want. And then the book's just like cut to black.
Yeah.
100%. And that's it.
That's a
the
book
session.
of short stories. That's showbiz, baby.
That's showbiz, baby.
Okay, again, just like the last episode on this book, I have just like hint of analysis.
Okay.
I have the LaCroix of analysis.
It's time for analysis.
Perfect.
So, you know how sometimes we'd have sections during the original series where I'd say, there's a lot happening here. It doesn't necessarily have like a cohesive theme. You know when I'd say that?
Yeah.
I'd say this short story is like the pinnacle of that.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in here.
No, it's like a wild ride of chaotic little vignettes. But if that isn't Angela to a T, I really don't know what is. So maybe in and of itself, just by being a ball of chaos, that was the point. And I would say if that's the goal, it accomplished it.
And you know, you might be listening to this and be like, wow, they're like coming down hard on this book. Like they don't like it. I would just say that, like, you know what, to be honest, I am unsure on this book. So far, and even we'll get to the next episode, we'll talk about it, but so far, in my reading of this book, I was very like, what is this supposed to be? Like, why am I reading this? And I know it's short stories. I actually love books of short stories. The Illustrated Man, one of my favorite books of short stories. I love short stories, and they can do a lot. And often short stories say more.
Yes.
And it seems here like this says less. And it's not a bad thing. It's just, I guess, too, I did read this in 2018.
Yeah.
And this was the only thing we got. And it was, I have to say, it was a letdown only because there is not much here, and you've been waiting for so long.
Yes.
So I'm excited to dive into Murtagh. Very excited we've been doing this. I just think if it sounds like we're coming down on it, it's not that we are. We're loving it. We think it needs to have episodes. We do like some of the things in here. I just think there's not a lot here. You know what I mean?
Yes, I'm going to talk about some of this in our last episode. Our ultimate episode on this book. A little bit about the reception of it, because I feel like I'm not an objective outsider necessarily.
Not at all. We are very not
yes,
that.
Of course. Well, but I think more so than you, who followed the series a little further into your adulthood and read this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't even read
totally.
Inheritance I read right when it came out, and that was the last time I read the series, was when that book came out, did a reread, and
2011?
2012 I thought.
Yeah.
But I haven't touched it since, and so I think, and I haven't really engaged with it until picking it up for this podcast.
Yes.
So I think I read into a lot of what the fan reception to this book was. Like we mentioned in the last episode, I'll talk about next time. I read a lot of Goodreads reviews about this book. And I have some thoughts about that, I think. And I guess for me, I think less about this book as a whole cohesive thing. I think that's just not how I think about books of short stories generally. I read them a lot. I really like collections of essays and that kind of thing. And so I just think about each piece of it individually. So I think this is my least favorite story in the book.
Yes. Mine as well.
Section of the book. I thought the opening with Murtagh was really strong. Like we talked about, really fun. We read that first story and I was like, cool, fun.
But that takes
great.
a lot of, see, this is going to my point though. That takes a lot of a lot of points, right?
Yes.
You want to know what's going on with Aragon. You get to go to another beloved character, Murtagh. You get an essence of what's happened since you've last read, and you get a little bit of action in it. And
yes,
there is a point to that to a certain degree. Here, although there seems to be a point, what's happening with Elva seems to be really the point of this, and an update on what's happening with Nasawada's bad magician army.
Yes.
Those are important.
Well, and I think check in with Angela, more backstory, more fleshing out of Angela.
For
a lot of people, for a lot of people who really like Angela, this might feel satisfying.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think it would be fun for people if that's what they're looking for.
Okay,
I like knowing more about Angela. I really liked, like I said, the endless library situation.
Yeah.
That was very fun. So I think I guess for me, I don't come to this book expecting there to be a point to it.
Oh, okay.
Because it's just here's some story. I mean, even right in the name, it's just Tales from Alagasia. It's just I just threw some shit on a page that is about the world. And that's what I was expecting. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And I feel for that, I'm not mad at all about
No,
this
I'm not either.
book of short stories. This is just my least favorite one.
Yes. And I think the book of short stories is my least favorite book. So I haven't read Murtagh, but so I think it's the combo that's just wow. So I just wanted to address that. If you're listening and we haven't said it explicitly, we don't hate this.
No.
I don't hate this. I just I do. I will say maybe the vibe that comes from me is I don't really like Angela.
No, I'm that also is a part of the puzzle here that
but it would have been fine if it had been good. I think I probably would have been well, objectively this was fun.
Yeah,
I didn't like that character, but it was fun. But that's not what happened here. Anyway, I know I cut you off.
No, you're fine. The only other thing I wanted to touch on in terms of writing style, that kind of thing, I thought it was interesting how much contrast we got between Christopher Paolini's writing style and his sister's writing style. It's hard to make an assessment, I think, of his sister's writing. I'm not going to be one is better than the other because each installment seems so brief. It's not like she really got time to breathe and show us what her vibe is as a writer. But I think the huge shift in tone when we started reading Angela's memoir was a good way to make this eccentric character stand apart from the world. It's okay, well, this is definitely different. It's different in the writing. And so I think for me, even though it was very different to read, like it accomplished maybe one of the goals it set out to accomplish, is my thought, you know? And
Yeah.
I have to admit, I think it's a little fun that these siblings like got the chance to produce a published piece of writing by real Angela as fictional Angela. I just think there's like
that is pretty cool.
whimsy in that a little bit. I love that journey for them.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. I mean, truly, truly lovely. I think that's nice.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about like, this is a weird thing about me, but do you ever think about like if there are super intelligent aliens looking down on us and they're like, look at the little monkeys.
Yes,
look at
for
what they're
sure.
doing.
I'm an animal that can use tools.
Yes, that is a refrain in my head. And I'm like, the monkeys would think, or the aliens would think, the monkeys are so fucking cute.
Yeah.
Look at them like
Aw.
writing their little books together, brother and sister.
They put the symbols on the pages again.
The character's named after the lady and she writes as the character. You know, I'm just like, that's so good for them.
Well, I'm going to leave us on that note, on this very positive note. Thank you for listening today. Make sure to rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. Support on Patreon, and check out our social media at Is This Just Fantasy Pod on TikTok or at Just Fantasy Pod on Instagram. If you have any questions or just want to write us about the podcast, maybe write an email to me about how I'm wrong about Angela. We'd love to hear from you, and you can email us at isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com.
Yes, and if you want to keep up this blistering pace and read along with us, I know we've really taxed you readers these last weeks, but on the next episode, we will be finishing this book, all 3 chapters, chapter 7, Deadfall, through chapter 9, New Beginnings.
But see, it's unfair. This is actually long. They're going to be like, well, this was like...
We're just 2 nerds and we love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be. Thanks for catching our show.